Welcome to our Mobility Snapshot Lunch and Learn. My name is Val Smith, and I am the Director of Road Safety Programs here at Parachute. I'm also the President of the Board at the Canadian Association for Road Safety Professionals. I'd like to just start with a land acknowledgement. And while we meet today on a virtual platform, we encourage you all to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands while we each call home. From coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of the Inuit, Métis, and the First Nations people that call this land home. Thank you. So today's webinar is our first in a series of webinars we will be running to try and build momentum, raise awareness, and engage with stakeholders and our governments to mobilize around the United Nations Global Decade of Action for Road Safety, 2021 to 2030. Working in collaboration with CARSP and the Global Alliance of NGOs for Road Safety, we are continuing to try and change the conversation when we think about how we design, redesign, and use our roads. The tools and resources in this webinar have been developed specifically for the Commit to Act campaign, which I will be talking about. However, they can be used by individuals looking to make changes in their communities and specifically to look at dangerous intersections. The tools can be used by community-based organizations and NGOs wanting to call attention to unsafe intersections, by city, staff, council, and other representatives needing to make a case to influence their colleagues on a policy change, infrastructural change, or a chosen intervention. We want to thank our colleagues at the Global Decade of Action for Road Safety on designing the resources and leading the Commit to Act campaign, as well as our exclusive road safety sponsor, Desjardins. We'll be doing a short Q&A at the end of the presentation, so please put your questions in there, and Julie, my colleague, will monitor. And finally, the session will also be recorded. Okay, Julie, let's get started on the agenda. So to start off today, I'm going to briefly go over the global plan for the Decade of Action for Road Safety. We're going to talk about mobility snapshots, what they are, how we can use them in general, but also during the Commit to Act campaign. We're going to be reviewing some of the interventions that we know to be highly effective in preventing death and serious injuries at our intersections. And at the end, we're going to wrap up with some information on the global campaign running the week of May 20th to 26th. Next slide, please. So before we jump in, I want to set the stage for our discussion with what I think is a really great awareness raising campaign that highlights the human face of the work we are all trying to do in road safety. Many of you may have seen this in the media. It was a pop-up campaign that targeted 4 locations in Vancouver just in the last month or so. So as you can see on the left corner, the sign says, "Be seen, grab, look, wave, and cross," and there's a number of bricks in the box. This picture is from Granville Island. I've been at this crossing. It is very dangerous, and you have to cross over a busy 4-lane roadway with limited visibility. So the bricks are actually made of foam, but the campaign really made a point. The initiatives poke fun at the idea that it should be the obligation of the pedestrian to essentially beg our drivers for safe passage across the road. It received a lot of really great media attention and will likely spur on some positive changes in some of these dangerous areas. So congrats to Vision Zero Vancouver on the campaign. Next slide, please. As many of you know, Parachute is Canada's national charity dedicated to injury prevention, and one of our key strategic priorities is road safety. Next slide. CARSP is a national member-based association dedicated to enhancing road safety at home and abroad. CARSP supports Canada's road safety community by providing access to multidisciplinary information, research, and networking. And I do need to make a plug that the CARSP conference is happening in Ottawa from June 16th to 19th. There's some amazing presenters, workshops, so please join us if you haven't registered already. Next slide, please. So the global plan. So each year, about 1.3 million preventable deaths and an estimated 50 million injuries happen on our roads. Without serious action, road crashes will cause an estimated 13 to 17 million more deaths and 500 million more injuries in this decade. As a response to these overwhelming numbers, in the fall of 2020, the UN General Assembly proclaimed 2021 to 2030 the global decade of action for road safety, with the target of at least 50% reduction of road traffic deaths and serious injuries. And Canada is a signatory to this resolution. Next slide, please. The Global Plan is a strategic document that guides the rollout of the global decade. This is a really great visual. It was designed by the United Nations and the World Health Organization. This visual describes what is needed to achieve the targets. How do we do it, and who should be doing it? And as you can see in the left-hand corner, there's a real focus on the safe system approach. As many of you know and are aware, the safe system approach aligns very well with the work we're seeing across our own country, such as Vision Zero and Complete Streets. Another really important goal of the global plan is the role within multimodal within our transport systems. So we know that road safety improves when we reduce motor vehicle traffic through strategies such as improved access to public transit, dedicated bike infrastructure, walkable and more connected neighborhoods. Additionally, there's so many other benefits in terms of improving our physical health and making our communities healthier and more sustainable. Moving on to the next slide. So in this picture, we'll very promptly go through this. This is a nationwide look at our current situation. The data is actually lagging by about 3 years, but in 2021, 1,768 people were killed on our roads, with over 8,000 being catastrophically injured. In 2021, 32% of collision fatalities in Canada involve vulnerable road users, so pedestrians, cyclists, and motorcyclists. An average of 300 pedestrians and 74 cyclists are killed each year, with over 73% of them being in a collision with a motor vehicle. We also know that a large proportion of our collisions and serious injuries happen at intersections, and that's going to be the focus of the Mobility Snapshot discussion today. So what do we know works? We know from a wide body of evidence that interventions such as 30 kilometers an hour in urban and residential areas, traffic calming, pedestrian facilities have reduced road deaths and injuries in a variety of countries and contexts, including Canada and Canadian cities. Given these measures have been shown to be effective across the globe in preventing death and serious injuries, they will be the focus of the mobility snapshots we're talking about. Speed reduction, especially in the context of urban areas, is the promotion of 30 kilometers per hour in residential areas where there is a high volume of pedestrians and cyclists. There's evidence that shows the risk of death and injury goes down significantly when vehicles are moving at 30 kilometers as opposed to 40 kilometers or 50 kilometers an hour. Pedestrians have just a 10% chance of survival rate when struck by a vehicle going 50 kilometers or over. Those chances increase to 90% when vehicles are going 30 kilometers an hour. The second main area is improvement and installation of pedestrian and cycling facilities. So this would include anything protected intersections, pedestrian islands, widening of sidewalks, leading pedestrian intervals, and of course, physically separated cycling lanes. So these measures protect pedestrians and cyclists as they navigate intersections, and it also helps them to feel safer overall. And of course, traffic calming. So these are the measures that are designed to keep drivers at appropriate speed levels. This includes speed humps, raised crosswalks, roundabouts, signage, and more. Next slide, please. Okay, so this brings us to the Commit to Act campaign led by the Global Alliance of NGOs for Road Safety. So for those of you who don't know this alliance, it's made up of a collection of NGOs. It was established in 2011, coming out of the United Nations Road Safety Collaboration. It currently represents 350 members of NGOs working in road safety from over 100 countries around the world. The Commit to Act campaign is part of a global movement challenging how our streets are designed and for who. This year, the campaign, later in May, will be leveraging the power of these mobility snapshots, encouraging stakeholders from around the world to profile visually and collect data on unsafe intersections and use them to positively engage with government, enforcement, and other influencers. Next slide, please. What are the mobility snapshots? So the mobility snapshots are meant to tell a people-centered story. And in this case, the story is about an intersection that is believed to be unsafe to vulnerable road users. The snapshots are a way to highlight the perspective of a person crossing the street on foot, on bike, or other wheeled devices, and some of the specific dangers they might be facing. The snapshots use photos and videos and bring together data and information to highlight what problems exist, measures that are needed, where they are needed, and how these measures will potentially save lives. So we don't confuse them with a network screening process or a road safety audit. However, they could be used as a tool to bring about action for a more road safety audit at a problematic area in your city. So the idea of the snapshot is that once completed, it can be used to engage with road safety stakeholders, community groups, the media. It can be used as a case at City Council and amongst your city staff departments. The snapshots were originally designed and will be used by folks in countries around the world during the Commit to Act campaign to raise global awareness of road safety and the Global Decade of Action. Next slide, please. So how do we create and leverage the snapshots? So we know from our discussions with different groups, some people are going to be organizing small community events around the Mobility Snapshot Initiative. Others may invite media and influencers to the intersection during the snapshot process, and some will be keeping it very simple, collecting data and photos to tell their own stories. So whether you're a part of a cycling group, working for a municipality in public health or transport, or you're a concerned community member, the first step is going to be identifying an intersection that we think is unsafe. So likely this intersection is located in an area that has plenty of pedestrian and cyclist traffic mixing with motorized vehicles. It may be known in your community to be unsafe with many near misses. It may have a high volume of vulnerable road users, and it could potentially be near a school or a community center or a hub close to public transit of some sort. So the second step will be to take a series of photos and/or videos. So in this case, the Alliance recommends that we take at least 4 high-resolution photos in good lighting conditions. The photos should include at least 2 portrait pictures and 2 landscape pictures, and we need to take them of the whole intersections. So photos should capture the main features of the intersections, sidewalks, and crossings, and any other particular red flags you've noticed. The third step will be to estimate real data with how many vulnerable road users are using the intersections. So the idea is that it's tracked over a peak 1-hour period. You can count the pedestrian and cyclist around the intersection, crossing, walking, wheeling along the main and side roads for 15 minutes during peak time, and then multiply your count by 4 to get the number of pedestrians during that period. The fourth step is using these really great Alliance forms and tools. You can identify which proven interventions are missing. So the tools will have you take note of variables such as what are the speed limits? Are there pedestrian crossings? Are there leading pedestrian intervals, dedicated cycling lanes, speed bumps, raised crossings, or are there a complete lack of those interventions? Also, it will have you take note of what the rules of the intersection are. For example, does the intersection allow for right turns on red? So if this sounds a little daunting, once you see some of the tools that are available through the Alliance, they do make it really quite easy to figure a lot of this information out. The fifth option, which is optional, the fifth step, which is optional, is you can choose to communicate with citizens using the intersection and collect some of their stories. And these testimonials can be used to further your case and raise more awareness of the problems that exist at that particular intersection. Finally, the Global Alliance has developed digital templates for you to take all of this information, your photos, your videos, and convert them into turnkey graphics and storytelling images that can then be shared during the Commit to Act campaign or that can be leveraged for your own particular awareness raising activities. Okay, so the Commit to Act campaign. So the campaign will be running for the week of May 20th to 26th, and will be revisited in the fall, leading up to the global ministerial conferences in 2025, of which we hope our Canadian ministerial staff will be joining. So there are 2 opportunities to take part in the campaign coming up in May and then in the fall. So you can do your initiative leading up to the week or during the week. And there's a number of ways you can participate. If you scan this QR code on the screen, it will take you to the Global Alliance website, and there's a lot of great tools and social media resources on that website. Next slide, please. So as I said, once you are on the Global Alliance website, you'll see there's a great walkthrough video that gives more detail on how to raise awareness during the week using the Mobility Snapshot. There's social media, banners, and visuals. So again, they're trying to make everything as turnkey as possible. Parachute's also going to be taking part in the campaign. We're going to be supporting communities and partners in Canada. So please reach out to me if you want any more information, if your community needs support. And remember, your voice is important. And if we mobilize together, we can certainly raise more awareness on the importance of keeping our roads safe. And just to finish off, I've spoke about this campaign and this initiative within the Commit to Act campaign in May. However, there's so many opportunities to use the Snapshot initiative in the work you might be doing. And as I said, if you're not able to or interested to take part in the global campaign, these are pretty simple resources that you can use to highlight dangerous areas in your community and intersections and take action. I know certainly from our colleagues working in municipalities, there's often a disconnect between different departments. There's often a disconnect at council, with some people in council wanting to see speed reduction and others wanting to keep speed the same. We're seeing some of this in Regina. In the media last week, we saw the disconnect there between different interest in different interventions. So certainly these types of tools can be used as a simple way to highlight problems. And we are always here to chat and to discuss any of your thoughts around this intervention. So please reach out if you need anything. And we will just open it and see if there's any questions. And I'm looking at a blank screen right now, so I can't see any of you, and I'm not seeing any questions. I'll just give it a minute. But if there are no questions about the Mobility Snapshot, as I said, my email is vsmith@parachutecanada.org. And we'd love to chat with some of you on the call if you are interested in taking part in the campaign. Okay, with no questions, thank you very much for joining us. The webinar, as I said, is recorded, and we will be sharing it. And I hope everyone has a great afternoon. Thank you. Oh,
There's a question that just popped up here.
yes, so really great question. I'm sorry we lost a few people, but yeah, they actually encouraged high visibility photos of the intersection and suggested using a drone. It just depends on what the municipal policies are around drone use. But certainly the higher you can get, if you can take pictures from a bridge or an elevated area, you're going to get a better perspective of the whole intersection. Thanks, Julia. Okay, once again, thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully we'll hear from some of you soon about the campaign.